Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Etheria restart video, and this video is all about Lian, okay? So I'm going to give you my thoughts on what she's good at, what she's not, how you might want to build her, if she's even worth paying attention to at all. I think she is, but maybe not for the reasons that you would expect. So the first thing we'll talk about right now is just sort of the headline. She is a pure DPS unit. Okay, she doesn't really have a whole lot of other tricks in her bag. She's all about just putting out damage, and most notably, she is free. So she is the first SSR you are going to get. She is a guaranteed pull, and some people might, kind of think, okay, she's a free unit, so maybe she's not that good, but I think she actually is pretty worth it, and we'll talk about why. So first, let's take a look at her skills here. So her skill 1 is a single target damage. The cool thing about it is that it has lifesteal. One of the things about Lian is that she has a little trouble staying alive, so having some lifesteal on her is a bonus, although you're not going to be using this skill too often. We'll take a look at her other skills in a second here, but having some lifesteal on here is, still a positive thing because it covers a little bit of her weaknesses. The other thing about it is that it does additional damage for each buff that she has. Now keep in mind, these do need to be distinct different buffs, not like stacks of the same buff, but she's going to benefit, of course, from whatever buff you gave her in the first place. But she's going to benefit a lot by getting her own additional buffs too. And you're going to see this on some of her other skills as well. So let's take a look at her skill 2. And skill 2 is a random multi-hit to enemies on the field with hitting 4 to 7 times. If there's only one enemy on the field, like a boss, it will do a lot of damage just to that single target. So even though it is kind of an AoE, it's almost better as a single target, but as an AoE, it's not the greatest. It will do additional hits for each buff that she has. So again, you want to stack as many different kind of buffs as you can on her as possible. So if you pair her with any buffer, like everyone's favorite Tiamat, it will be even more effective. And there's a lot of other buffers out there that will help, of course. Think the free unit Gray, who is possibly the best SR in the game. The first banner unit, Freya, who's also one of the best units in general anyway. So these are people that you can easily get that will be giving her useful buffs. But now let's take a look at her skill 3. And this one is probably the most straightforward. It's just a big AoE that hits all enemies on the field no matter how many there are, and it will also take turn meter. This does a lot of damage, and if the turn meter hits, it's great, but unfortunately the turn meter isn't that reliable. Turn meter effects are basically the best in the game, okay? Anytime you can manipulate that by decreasing your opponents or increasing yours, it's extremely potent. So the fact that this has that possibility to do that, it's very good, but again, it's just not that reliable. Still, it is a good skill that clears multiple targets. So overall, her skills are pretty powerful. But again, she doesn't really have a whole lot of other things going on, right? She's not causing debuffs or doing any kind of taunting or helping out your other teammates at all. She's a little bit selfish in that respect. So now let's talk equipment. So there are kind of basic sets of equipment. There are going to be modules in this game. I'm sure most of you guys probably already know that. And she will be great with either Onslaught or Swift Rush, okay? Basically, offense or speed. I don't think trying to make her tankier is that great of an idea, but more damage is great, of course, and I think speed is even better, which I was testing her out here with this Onslaught set, but I would actually recommend the Swift Rush set that I currently have over here on Messiah. She's not that fast with her base stats, so Swift Rush is my favorite set on her. You can also try other equipment sets that increase her critical rate and stuff later on in the game, but it will take a while to unlock those really high level sets that have multiple set bonuses on them. But she is good as a critical damage dealer, so just keep that in mind. So when you're choosing your shell, you also want to make sure that you have a matching set. So of course, currently I have this lizard. He's honestly not even that great, but I would recommend this one for a lower, a earlier game one. This Unbridled Silence one is really good, or whatever Swift Rush one you have. Okay, you want to make sure that you're choosing a shell that matches the Swift set. with someone like Unbridled Silence, or Budo Panda is another one you'll get after not too long. And again, there are even better sets later in the game, but we'll have to wait a while to get there. Also, equipment with effect accuracy. So if I go back to our modules here, do I have one with effect accuracy on sets on her right now? Maybe I don't. I'll probably have to go back. Oh, here we go. We got one on here. I have more on that Swift set again than I have on Messiah at the moment. But effect accuracy is going to be good because it will help you trigger her turn steal effect. So that turn manipulation effect from her AOE, it's going to help trigger that. So, if you can find those bonus stats with effect accuracy, that's going to be really helpful on her as well. Keep in mind, these are random. I'm going to do a whole guide video, by the way, on kind of how the equipment system works in Etheria Restart, so keep an eye out for that. Subscribe so you don't miss that video, and give the thumbs up on the video while you're at it. Anyway, so I would also try crit as like more substats as well, and attack substats as possible, but probably focus on that Swift Rush speed set for kind of like your main equipment type. So now let's talk about some kind of like pros and cons of Lian. The cons are that she's a bit of a glass cannon, okay? Like, she does die pretty easily. So if you pair her with someone like Tiamat, who can taunt for her, and or maybe like strong healers, that's going to be really helpful. But without some of that support, she gets blown up pretty easily. She'll dish out a lot of damage, but again, just that kind of classic glass cannon archetype. She's also not good against Doki Doki. So if we go to, let's see, what is it? It's the Threshold Battles. Doki Doki over here is one of the bosses that you want to farm the most early on in the game, kind of early to mid game. And ironically, she's the one that you get the Swift Rush set to, that you want to be able to apply to Lian. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem, and Lian is not going to be good against Doki Doki because Doki Doki is the blue element, which is what Lian is weak against, because Lian is the red type, okay? And the blue type is going to be good against her. We got RGB characters here. So red, green, blue, odd is strong against reason. And so she's not going to be good against farming Doki Doki, which is kind of bad in like the early stages of account development. So just that's a bit of a con against her. The other thing, like I mentioned before, she's not very fast. But at least her skill 3 can steal some of that turn meter, remember? And this is also why we want to put the Swift set on her. But she is kind of slow. Her base stats are like pretty mid in that regard. If you don't have buffers to help get all those extra benefits, like on her AoE skills and that first skill as well, her skills do become pretty mid. Again, she's gonna, be better and better the more buffers that you have. But let's talk about the pros. She has a very high crit rate stat. Okay, so crit is very, very good for her, just her base stats, and then eventually later on in the game when you can lean into that more, crit will be very good. Also combos well with one of the best SR characters, Gray, who also buffs crit. So keep that in mind. That's a great early game combo. She also just does high damage overall, so that's another pro for her. And then 2 of her moves are big AoE attacks, and one of them does, this skill 2 here, does even higher single target damage if there's only one enemy on there. She benefits a lot from those buffers. Again, I keep trying to hammer this point home here. You always want to run her with the most amount of buffers that you can. And her usefulness goes up exponentially with the more types of buffs you can stack on her. She's a very strong pick in Arena too, which is somewhat surprising. I was actually surprised to see how often people pick her as the unit to ban from my team, so she can be very effective in Arena. So should you build her? Yes, but there might be, some even higher priorities depending on who you pull. I mean, there's some pretty busted light and dark units out there. But you're probably not going to be building an entire team of light and dark units. And in the end, ultimately, you do want a DPS unit of every elemental type. There's also a starting progression reward thing that gives you great stuff for building her. So the more you progress, it's kind of one of those like starting game things where like, level up her skill to this and then you get these rewards or whatever. So it's great for getting more resources at the beginning. However, ironically, I think Lian is actually, she actually becomes better in the late game. So you might see better use out of her once your account is a little bit higher level than initially in the game, even though she is that starting first level unit. So those are my thoughts on Lian, kind of how I would build her, what I think she's good at and not good at. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Let me know your thoughts on her as well. I will put out kind of a tier list later on when we're actually close to the real global launch. Remember, we are still in beta. But if I had to kind of put her in a tier right now, I would put her probably in like the A tier. So, you know, just below those actual like really top tier units. But again, let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to join my Discord, community Discord, link down in the description, as well as links to other Etheria Restart videos. We have an answer potentially to the problem of not being able to connect. So if you're one of those people who has had to like use a VPN or not be able to connect, we might have an answer to that as well. I made a community post about it, so check that out. There's the new version of the client. It's sort of like a test version, although it's beta, so it's all test. Anyway, I will catch you guys in the next video or stream.